I will speak about the public, and we had a long day yesterday, and everything, I think, it will have an overlap with some of the projects we had yesterday, if somebody has been here, and it was a quite political day also yesterday, and I will speak more today about my point of view as a designer, and I want to point out a little bit, I call it the in-between. There's a very nice Dutch word for it. It's called tussentijd, or Aldo van Eyck also used it a lot as our main architect. I was trained even by Aldo van Eyck in the past, the last years of him. But I wanted to show you this picture. It is from the Rietveld architects, the in-between, and it's even a military fort. It was, and they cut it in half. So I think also that the public is really under pressure at the moment. We saw it yesterday, we've been talking about it a lot, and also the pressure of Michiel van Gestel showed this beautiful map about the main square in the Netherlands where all the CCTV cameras are in. And I remember still when in the 80s came the first CCTV camera in the Netherlands. And we were wondering, oh, this is only for 1 year, but now it's continuously, we're surveilled and we're looked after, and I feel even under attack, and for me the public space is now a place of transition, going through and not staying there anymore. That's my personal feeling at the moment, and also within our office we try to find a way of escaping a little bit this public feeling, and especially in the city. I believe also there's public space in the rural area. I will show you some examples. But I first want to take you to India, because India has been in our office big importance, because I'm trained as an architect, but in 2002 I had an office 10 years in architecture, and architecture is the dinosaurs under the arts and urban design. It takes at least 20 years till something succeeds. And I went to India with a trip, and then I met Jurgen. It was a change in my working career and also my personal career, because we work together and live together, so it's merged. And India, we always have been back. We even have work now in India. And in India, like yesterday, we talked a lot about the public as a space, and within modernism, the ideal space and the separations of spaces. And in India, there's a merge. Modernism has not been grounded so much there. Everything is, unless you see, of course, the English heritage within India, but everything is inside out, outside is in. And I want to take you a little bit about what it meant to us within India, what we saw, and we use it a lot as a question. We raise our own projects and we think about India. And this is this lady, she was always weeping dust in the middle of a park, and the whole day, I passed her every day from a hotel, and she was always weeping this dust. So we were thinking about the quality of dust, because it's all around us, and we have to clean all day, but we're not so aware of it. That dust also has a quality, because we have dust storms and everything else. And we're hoovering a lot, we're cleaning a lot. So what can you do with the dust as a quality? So thinking beyond the thing that it's dirty or something else. So we made this chair out of the dust bag, and it was kind of a thinking model. And if you look at India, if you think about water, the best container is the coconut, and it's always available on the street. And it's clean, they cut it for you, and you have directly a kind of a water supply with you. Or the push carts are everywhere. It's a world with push carts, and you're surrounded with services. It's at the street, they come in the city and they leave again. Absolutely not allowed anymore in the Netherlands. Everything is permanent, and on the regulations much more. And he was cooling down through this system, and I think it's a beautiful system how he did it. And also the big wash machine of Mumbai. They're very near to the river, so you have always these empty spaces they use one way or the other, or to live or to do another service. And this is actually the biggest washing machine of whole India. And it's in the middle of Mumbai. And it started as a small unit, and then they were growing. And if you think, all the hotels bring still here their wash, and they still can separate they can bring it back. This system is so ingenious and so unbelievable clever that not even one computer system can go beyond that. So you have one big lawn of drying. And also the public space is often the workshop itself, because the work outside is not, you can use it, it's not a property from somebody, but you can always use it temporarily. And then it's, here they make, for the kites, they make with the glass on the fabric. Or there are even offices outside. You can have printed, somebody is printing for you, or a letter as a lawyer. And the outside world is also the office. We are so, from the modernists, so into the functions of, you have an office space, and then you have even a corridor, and you have an entrance. But here it's always coming in and coming out. And like this human workspace, he had the most tiniest space you can imagine, but it was his place and his. He just is a selling booth actually, and we learned from that. And this is then also with again a dust cabinet, and it was the observation room of Jurgen a long time. He has been working from this space to think about dust, and you see actually the result of the chair vacuumed afterwards, and you had the dust chair. And the beauty parlor. In every corner, there is somebody cutting your hair and bringing a service to the street and to the persons. And we had an interview with this, because I was interested a lot in New Delhi, and this is old Delhi, about all these service systems are in the street. And he already was here 20 years, and he was now a little bit worried because they're cleaning up old Delhi. And he had to rent a space, and he can't afford a space at the moment. But he had a good living just from being at the street. So he was really worried what kind of future he could have after the cleaning up. Because the gentrification in India is happening in a fast speed. I'm visiting 10 years, and it's already changing so much. And this is his office. Everything what he needed is inside here. And also the public space is used as a big, people feel free, and it's allowed to even stay in the evening when you have to catch a train. You're going to lie down, and you have no idea that it's possible. In the Netherlands, it's not even allowed, or you're a hobo or something, and you will be. And people are living on the street. I'm not celebrating this kind of that are also poor people, but it's only that people. Don't push them away. So the use of public space is quite different. Okay, so what I want to address is that we can do things at a very speedy way, like 1 + 1 is 2. That's a very Dutch method. We're very impatient as Dutch persons. It's even a saying like 1 + 1 is 2, so you know what it's about. But you can also take the longer route, and I think the both are. I'm always trying to take the more difficult, longer pace, but it's not easy within economics a lot within our office. But I'm longing for it. And this is one of the Joost Konijn. This is a Dutch artist who has been thinking about cars. What is the car about? Is it about speed? Is it about meeting people? What kind of fuel can you use with the loss of fuel, and we're out of gas and everything. So he made this car completely out of wood, and also the fuel is wood. And he went to Romania to have this trip. And he was going to. The thing is, if you have a fuel, the wood is your fuel. You have to meet people, and they have to help you to cut the wood, or perhaps know where you can cut wood, or buy wood from people. So he had a whole road trip, and he made a beautiful movie out of this road trip. And if you see India, there are hardly signs in the public space. There are not rules. The rules are regulated by the people themselves. So it looks like a congestion, but it's like a fluid movement. People just pass around and just go on till now, because now the bigger cars come in, the rules come in. But if you think also about in the Netherlands, we always want to speed up and make very heavy cars, steel, and it's getting bigger. But in the city, we need soft cars because we can't speed. So this is Thomas Worm. And I love always public transport in the city. The first thing I do when I come in a foreign city is take public transport, because I think it's also one of the last public places you can take part of. It's not only space, but it's also all the services. And I've been taking yesterday, because it's always taxis when you're a guest. That's very, very gentle and very nice. But yesterday I took the bus here in Ljubljana, and it's really good. I was really like, okay, this is good, very good organized. And this morning too, every 6 minutes was a clean bus, and everybody was standing in line. It's very organized. So I was very happy to have this experience here. But we're also thinking about how can you change the space, because we now are still the big cars in the city, and we try to go to work. But if you can combine them, the work and the transportation, because we need this. We always go to work to this place, and we want to be there. So we were thinking about how can we combine and the working space and the transportation together. So we've been researching this, what do you need for a workspace, and how big would it be, and what kind of transport, slow transport. And we've been building it in our studio. We do a lot of tests. We always build it one-to-one ourselves. And it's a kind of a small module, almost like a computer vehicle, testing it. And this is the result. This is a small slow car you can use in public space and also in the campus sites. If you think about campus, about universities, that you can also use the outdoor space as your work space, because there's still, you have to do with weather in our conditions. And this was made for Vitra in the idea of the new workspace, the office. This is of the campus of Vitra. And you see, it's not competing with the car. It's competing with the chair, with the office chair. So we made an office chair who can speed up, and you can meet people, and you can meet your big friend here and have a talk. But you could also think about if some offices, like we have here in Ljubljana, that's what our whole project is about, the Bio 50 of my group, affordable living, and we're looking a lot at empty spaces. And through the period of time, and we call it crisis, but I think let's call it the opportunity. And if you think about the empty buildings, they're beautiful umbrellas. You don't need so much. So think about, you could bring in your own vehicle, your own office, everything is there, your own station. So you could occupy even when it's under construction, you could occupy this space for a certain period. And because everybody's so afraid for the longer term, but everybody's flexible. We're now I think this generation are the new nomads. We're working not longer than 2 years at a certain place. Master students are everywhere from all over the world. Come in, come out, go out. So we're much more flexible than the old system. So we're also much more used to have to work within a different environment. Here are all the slow cars parked. And this is the second generation, because we made it already a better version. And this is already completely covered, and even a heating it was in and everything. And if you think about India, they have these very little small tuk-tuks or auto, what do you call them? Autos, I think. No. So they're also there. And I think this temporality is, the tussentijd, in between time, we have to take much more advantage of, instead of always thinking about permanence. And if you think also about building sites, like yesterday, you told about this building site. It's shut down for years. But what can you do in the between time on building sites? You can also use all this equipment, what is already there, this was for a place in Salzburg, to change, to also use for a moment all this equipment, what is heavy constructed, and to make a different kind of space for just during the building period. Like you can use it as an event space. And this is from, now I forgot the word, Aristides? Yeah, we were talking about it. This is one of the last projects of him, and I think it's a beautiful example of, we can even have now a 3D, we can even occupy perhaps more the public space in the 3D dimension, that we are in a higher. So this is a living room, it's a kind of a bedroom, but I could imagine it could be completely other use of space. And it's not future, it's just a crane. It's just a crane, we can park it everywhere. And it is not science fiction, it's around us. So, and I think this is one of the beautiful examples of temporary space. You don't have to own it. It's not about property, it's about owning and sharing more the space itself. Because otherwise, if you own something, there is always the fence. You have to protect something, and this is then the fence. You could protect the building that's under construction. And we made, for a big playground, we made this to protect because you always have to protect the trees when you are in a public space, if you're going to construct something. But if you could make a sculpture out of the trees, in the meantime, and even the sculpture itself, you can make a new kind of a space where you can have in the evenings, you could have a cinema, or even have a space what was also under construction, or a casco. You don't have to finish sometimes things. We're longing for finishing things, but the stage in between is always an opportunity. And this was for a school, an education play that they could build in the meantime and break it down again. So these are just examples of thinking. A lot of them has not been executed because there has been a lot of fear about this unknown, not fixed thinking. And this is another kind of office. This would be my favorite office for the meantime, in the middle of the city. I just want to be here. Give me 3 months of this office. And we made for Vitra also a high worker, so you have another view on your working day. And it could be also outside, inside. And it all comes from, we are also, as our office, we also the new nomads in the Netherlands. We have this, we had in the, you could always squat till 2 years ago. But they had a counterpoint about this squatting. An organization was very clever, and he said, we make you keeper of the house, because then the owner gives you, for a time, the opportunity to stay there till it's rented out. So, and we are in this system of the anti-squat. Unfortunately, squatting is not allowed anymore, so this whole system is also going down. And because you only need a roof, and then or only an umbrella, and then you can build in your own space. And this was our learning from India. We also had 1,500 square meters, and we learned a lot from it. We've been here 4 years, and we're now in a second phase, but I wanted to show you this one. because it was our workshop. It was our exhibition space. Every Friday we had open house, so people could come in, and we had all our products, or how would you call it, and we had meetings there. We had open discussions. This is our workspace, because in the winter it's always cold, so you had to make it smaller. We made a kind of a light bubble. This is Henriette, actually, who's also in the team. She worked with Swarovski. This is Swarovski thing. This was my office. And this office, it's a very Dutch typical thing. It is a SRV-wagen. You could drive. It's a shop. It's a shop from the 70s. It went around all neighborhoods. It was a beautiful system. That you had your shop at home. And they're not in function anymore, hardly ever. So we bought one, and we had also this mobile office in and out. We could drive through the neighborhood and go out and in and out. This is Jurgen's office. So we learned a lot from this space. You could call it private, but we opened it up. So it was this kind of loopholes within the city. You could enter. And there are more of these initiatives, a lot in the Netherlands. And then we had to move out. So we're now in a second space, and we have to move out again. You have to be flexible, but it's still possible. But what we learned from it, after this, we were asked to do a project in Utrecht. And it's also a biennial, and it's about social design. And this is a neighborhood full of warehouses from the 60s, 70s, and they are also under attack because they want to gentrify this neighborhood to make more living spaces, to make it nicer, because the working space is not anymore, or the factories are not allowed anymore in the city. But if you think about factories nowadays, in the Netherlands, they're not dirty anymore. We don't have dirty industry. It's not industry. It's just small warehouses and workshops where people having a kind of a skill, and they work there with 10, 20 people. So we wanted to celebrate also this. We wanted to keep for this neighborhood the workspaces. And we've been investigating this whole neighborhood, and what we did, we rented for we didn't even rent it. We got for 1 year a space. And it's a very old neighborhood, and it's always been it were always workshops. Where the mills were, it was quite a rich neighborhood. And I don't know if you know the label Pastoe. It's a very old Dutch label from furniture, and that was the ground place of Pastoe, of the. So we got very next to the water tower. We got a space, and it's called Working Area Rotsoord. And we opened the 1st of May, and we were celebrating the day of Labor's Day. And we made a whole parade to get us known through the neighborhood that we're there. And we made flags and a whole parade with it, and everybody was a lot of people were joining during this 1st of May as a starting point, because we could only stay there for 1 year. And we were the main curators, but we asked other people to join us to do also kind of so we called it work landscape. And the first thing was the workspace itself. And we had all this, the intention was that everybody could join this workspace. And they didn't have to pay rent. They only had to give us some hours of their skills. So if there was a painter, he could help us painting, or he could give a lesson or education, or have to give a lecture. So it was always within some hours paid back. And we had a soup machine, because food is always important to keep people happy. So we made a kind of a soup machine. Everybody could cook soup over here. And it was kind of the main event every day. Every Wednesday was open soup day, all these things. There was an exhibition about design, so people could also know more about design itself. And it all has to do with the new idea of that the designer is more and more self-producing. Because in the Netherlands, we have hardly any producers anymore. We have to do it ourselves. And all the examples were part of these young designers who were designing and producing. And you see here in Essaum, the plants were from somebody, a project, who found plants on the streets, and you could adopt them or bring another plant you didn't want anymore. And there were also workshops. And this is from a Dutch guy who is discussing the idea of child labor. And there is a law in the Netherlands that you can have 1 hour a day a child can work, as long as you have a contract with your child. And you can call it labor, or it's called education or experience. And he's a painter, original, Lucas Maassen, and he has 3 beautiful, gorgeous sons, and they work for him. So he's making this kind of construction, and then he can 1 hour. It's a 1 hour painting on these kind of furniture. So they were also. We had this workshop, and we were discussing what this could mean. This kind of is work, is it labor, is it child abuse, or what is it, or is it an experience? Or so these kind of discussions we had a lot within this in this place. Sophie Krier, she went really into the neighborhood, and she's a designer, a trained designer, and she's interested in skills. And nowadays, in the old days, you had always the yellow pages. You were looking for somebody, a carpenter, and you had this yellow page. Now it's through internet, but nobody's visible anymore. Everybody's hidden. Where are all the skills? So they went into the neighborhood and looking for potential. And they did a lot of field work, and then we're questioning what kind of work people would do and how could they contribute to the whole festival. And then she made the ABC, like the yellow pages. So what can you find on the A, and what is still available in the neighborhood? C for car mechanics, and they did a whole research through this area. It's really like an island within a middle class working, more or less a middle class neighborhood. There was a homeless spot, so what could they contribute? So she made this map and was mapping the whole area. And she came out with 3 projects. One of this was this service in the neighborhood. It was quite, if you think about a gas station, you can buy stuff there, but it's always a kind of a meeting place. It's a kind of you could have a car wash. So she was using all this. That was the only place that people were coming around and were not particular, perhaps, neighborhood people, but you could have a kind of this was the last service still left. So you use this area to pimp up your car. And it was because there were also very good designers in the neighborhood, and they made this kind of a very nice, beautiful artwork. It was more artwork, but you could have a drive-in, and in the evening was pimp up your car. There was a cleaning day, because this guy from the neighborhood loved cleaning cars, and he made no money out of it, but then they saw an opportunity of him that he was the best cleaner ever. There were conversations in the car itself, and there was even a car blessing day. If you think about the old you have to go, in the old days, you had to go to the church, but now it was the other way around. So there was also a car blessing and a bike blessing, and it was quite serious, because there was a priest from the neighborhood who wanted to join. And these are then the results of the... And there is also a Dutch tradition of little sheds behind houses, but you never know what's happening in a shed. Everybody's having amateur hobbies there, and these sheds are quite important. So we took some of these sheds out of the backyards and put them in a certain area in front of. We occupied an empty space, and we've been breaking down some of these sheds and then building up them again. So these are the sheds back suddenly in the front. And we're having there repair shops and education shops. You see, we had a pin board, and then we questioned the people, what do you want to have in this neighborhood, or what is your skill? And there was this making wood from a fire from paper. And there was a kind of repair. This is the learning shed. There was a repair shed. And it was continued, it went over for a year. It was also to make things visible. And all the skills from the people. We have also a tradition in the Netherlands to walk with a kind of a corso, to have this parade once a year, and everybody's dressing up, or with carnival, or with flowers. And in the old days, we found that it was also with kind of skills. It was a kind of an old advertisement almost. You were running through the streets. So we made our ABC parade. So this is a lady who made her own tiles, a serious tile baker, and there was a wood maker, there was a florist, and we made this ABC from. And then the parade happened for one day. And then, so you see here the wood. And a nice thing that everybody came out of the house. It was really a social event almost. And the last thing I will show is this Esther van der Wiel. She was curating. And if you think about skills, you always think about tools. And this is a whole tool. This is a wall you can use for different kind of occasions, because you need your tools, your wall. If you explore these, everything that's lightened up is for building, for eating. And she made a lexicon about everything what had to do with food in the city, because we think always the food is outside the city, but she brought it back into the city. And think about the food itself, how you can conserve food on a different level. So it's more from a designer point of view. And this is again back in in our room. There was a group who invented back an old tradition of, you had bakeries and they always had breadcrumb, and then they make a kind of a cake with it, but it was lost because you have to throw it away, it's not allowed anymore to use the leftovers. So they brought back this old tradition of the spoorpunt. And she made from weeds in the public park new kind of pestos. And another one, a girl thought, why is actually the garden always remote, or not always on the outside? We can look after plants even in our office. So she made this garden inside of the office. So growing your own, be responsible for your own food. Okay, this is the last thing I wanted to show, because I think it's also, there is a rural public too. It's not only, we talk a lot about last days about cities, but I think it's also the city and the rural in the Netherlands, it has an overlap already. It's almost like the outside, the rural, the countryside, it's almost getting more city. Everybody's commuting between city and countryside, and the farmers are, we're losing a lot of farming in the Netherlands. And there is also a rule, when you have a plot in the Netherlands, then 3 meters from the water ditch, you can't use for farming, because of if you have some pollution or if you use poison, you can't use it. So it's actually 3 meters of open area. And if you have an agreement with a farmer that you could open it up for perhaps a few days a year to have a public path through, because otherwise the whole rural area is always closed off. You can't enter the rural area. So this is the project that she had a lot of discussions with farmers to open this up and to make an outside kitchen, because there was also a garden. And this is Harriet. She made a kind of from apple press. You could have your own apples there, and you could have your own apples. So suddenly it was not only from one person, this yard, but this for more other persons. And we made this kind of container caravan, because in the countryside everybody comes with a caravan in the Netherlands. But we wanted to combine the idea of a little container and the caravan together, and you can stay there for a few nights, and it's on wheels, because when it's on wheels, it's informal, and you can it's a farmer's traditional. You can let it be there. So this is from the inside to the outside. So it was also opening up the farmland to the public and to use it much more. Okay, this is the last project, also about temporary spaces, because you can grow food and you can have from the food you can build things. So this was also a temporary, only for 3 months. We made a small architecture in a field. We made our own wheat, and we were building this house, and you could stay there, and it was a homage to Brinta, but it's a very Dutch wheat or porridge, actually. So I think I'm going to stop here. Thank you.